Well, hey, I'm Dave Mulcahy here with Chris Lippe, and this is the first episode of the Life by Genetics podcast, where each week we're going to be talking about using your genetic blueprint to live your best life. And we're going to be digging deep into health, methylation, longevity, detoxification, and how these genetics benefit us individually as parents, business owners, athletes, partners, and beyond. So today is our first episode. I was looking back at my notes, figuring out when was the first time we even talked about doing this, and I think it was January of 2024. Chris, we were talking on the phone, talking about maybe doing this, and so now it's July 2025. So about 18 months later, we're finally ripping off the Band-Aid and trying this out. So
That's
I'm
the way
excited.
that's the way it usually goes.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes. Do you want to introduce yourself? Tell people, your background and
Yeah,
kind of
so
bringing the credibility here. So
just a little piece is yes, I'm in the genetics business. I've been in the nutrition field for years. Before that, I was in the coffee business. So I've had a variety of things in my life, business wise, but ultimately I love helping people, and I think that something that we've uncovered, Dave, is that genetics gives us this true blueprint, and living your life by genetics or following your genetics is something that I just think it's the way to go. It's new. We're hearing about it in the news all the time. Just in the last 10 years or so, we've mapped the whole genome. So it's still really new. It's cutting edge. The technology is amazing. And most importantly is that the prices have come down. So everybody is accessible now to everyone. So it's really pretty cool. And so anyways, I live in San Diego. I love it. Going to get out to the water here this afternoon, and been here my whole life. So
rub it in. Yep. And I'm Dave. I live in Illinois, so I'm jealous of your beach trips. But I've been in marketing for the past 15 years, started in political marketing, and I'm learning kind of the genetics business as we go through this. But I just love marketing, and I'm excited to do a podcast because it's always been on my list to jump in and play with. So
yeah, and you've done a genetic test. So
I have. Yes.
Yeah, you're there you go.
It's on my desk all the time as I'm checking things.
That's pretty cool right there.
Yeah. So Life by Genetics is here. I think, let's talk about why this is going to be important for us to, why now is the time that we finally, after 18 months, have decided to jump off and do this. Yeah, I think for me, it's that shift from reactive to predictive healthcare using genomics and what we're seeing. And I think, last month, England came out with a report talking about National Health Service plans to DNA test all babies born. And I'll put up some links. I'll put in the notes some links to the articles. But basically, they're hoping to screen all newborn babies for rare diseases, and this will involve sequencing their complete DNA using blood samples for the umbilical cord taken shortly after birth. Currently, newborn babies are offered a heel prick blood test that checks for 9 serious conditions, including cystic fibrosis. But the health secretary said in a statement, with the power of this new technology, patients will be able to receive personalized health care to prevent ill health before symptoms begin, reducing the pressure on NHS services and helping people live longer, healthier lives. And then he added as well, the revolution in medical science means that we can transform the NHS over the coming decade from a service which diagnoses and treats ill health to one that predicts and prevents it. So I found that super interesting because this is what we do in business. Like, we've been doing this on the private side, and now England's taking it kind of nationally. But what's your thought? I mean, you've been watching this the closest. What's your thoughts on all this and what it means for the United States?
So the last part of what you said to me was the most important, is that it's going to move to a preventative model. And that to me is the ultimate. Look, I have a lot of friends that are going to say, no, I don't want my genetic test done on my kid. You're going to create these drugs that they have to take later in life. There's too much data, all this encroachment stuff. And look, I understand that. And privacy is hugely, supportive of privacy. But the preventative model in utilizing genetics for that particular person is so important. There are so many things that you can learn in your blueprint that you could start with a newborn. I have a 2.5-year-old. and knowing certain things that he's predisposed to, I can start now that he's getting more of certain nutrients. You know, if he doesn't like vegetables, which is true, we try to find ways to make sure that certain vegetables that are high in certain nutrients for him, that he eats it. And we find ways to get that into him. So, look, I think that this information, if it's used right and it's in the right hands, I think can be of ultimate value. We talk about trying to live to 100, 120. I think to live longer with quality of life is going to happen because of genetics. This information that they're doing in these full genome tests, whole genome sequencing, WGS, or even just using a comprehensive test, which gives you about 200 data points. If you get that, you have a great roadmap. And that's what you actually have, Dave, is in your binder there is about 200 points, and it can answer so many different questions. So look, I think this is spot on. The one challenge has been really that the price of genetic testing in high quality genetic testing has been, it's restrictive. It was $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 to get an entire sequence done. And not only that, but then to take it and apply it through qualified scientific data. And what I mean by qualified is using certain rating scales out there, the Oxford rating scale, others, to determine what quality of the output of the science are we getting. Are we getting a paid for type thing by some company, or are we getting more academia where it's just giving you the results and you make a decision from those results? So, utilizing data will really, really be helpful for us. So I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, I was reading through, and it sounds like they're gonna, they're concerned. They said it's probably going to be a big industry for them, is actually having people that'll sit and read this data and try to figure out what it means. Because, I've had this test now for the last year and a half or so, 2 years, and I'm still referencing it and finding things out about myself as I go through, because there's so much, detail in this report. How are people going to be able to do this, especially when you have a newborn? You're not going to know how to decipher the data. So I think that's going to be super important. And then obviously with AI coming, AI is going to be able to do some of this for people as well.
Yeah, it's already happening. I think from an AI perspective, trying to find a way to take the data and make it usable. I'm not a scientist. In school, I majored in finance. When I was in the coffee business, I was running, stores. So I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I don't pretend to be one. I'm someone that looks at life and the health of life, and I want to live my fullest. I've got 2 older children. I've got a 2.5-year-old as well. And, with my older children, I was doing the things, playing the baseball, going out on the boat, wakeboarding, doing that stuff. I want to do that with my young one too. So how do I best get there? And I think that the answer lies in our genetics. As this science unfolds and becomes more available, and I mentioned the price being really high, it's now down in the single $100s to get these things done. So it's pretty cool of what's out there. And but to me, it's the blueprint. How we decipher that data and make it usable and understandable. It can be a little bit challenging at times. Looking at that, I look, just last night, I pulled up something in the toxicity panel, and it can be really confusing, but there's also really good summaries. And if you don't go too far and you just look at the summary, I was learning that the CYP gene and toxicity around charring meats, because I was barbecuing, and I just wanted to know a little bit more. And sure enough, there I was with, reduced function in my genetics. And I thought, wow, maybe I should eat a little bit less, or maybe not quite char that meat as much as I would normally like to.
We're going to ruin a lot of people's summer barbecues with that data.
Yeah. Look, I think there's, the ultimate point here is this, is that we have the data. We don't need to go too far in one direction, not too high, not too low. But it's middle of the road, but it's going to give you the best way to fill your tank in health to the positive side. And if you can still have those moments where, you're going to eat something that may not be the best for you. It doesn't mean it's the end of the world. The DNA is not your destiny is a phrase that I'll say over and over again, because just because of what we've inherited from mom and dad, I don't think it's not the end all. Doesn't mean that something's happening right now because of that. So anyways, look, I just think it's the way to go. Blood tests have been dominating healthcare for such a long time. And look, it's still good to get, a blood draw and check certain markers. But the reality is that when you pull that blood draw, it's at that moment in time. In 24 hours, a lot of those things can change. Hormones, glucose, insulin, et cetera. All of that can change. But if you know what you've inherited from mom and dad and how well you're going to handle situations, not just diet, but exercise, emotions, it's a sunny day out today. It makes me happy. If I'm living somewhere where it's cloudy all the time, 90% of the year, maybe I'm not quite as happy. And there's certain things that you can do if you know that, and it'll have an effect on you. So look, I just think this is such a cool field, and just to have fun with it. Like I said, not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. Like you and I were talking about this. We're just two guys that have families and and want what's the best for us and for them, as well as helping others. So we're just going to share our journey as we kind of go through this.
Yeah, I think that the idea, like, I got this report, and just because something says that, it gives me some indications, right? Like, we're going to go into exercise, and on some of these podcasts, there's exercise, there's food, there's all different kinds of things, and it kind of gives you a roadmap to say, avoid this, do this. So it doesn't mean you have to avoid barbecues. It just means that, hey, you probably shouldn't do it for every single meal, or for, you're just at a higher risk of it causing inflammation, right, in your body. Is that kind of how to decipher that?
Exactly. So for me specifically within that, the charred meat type thing is, and there's several different specific genes, and we can look deeper into those. And like I said, DNA is not your destiny. It doesn't mean that if I have a charred steak today, it's going to have that effect on me. But if I do it 6 days out of the week or 5 days out of the week, I might have other issues. So what do I do about that? Do I just eat less of it? Most likely. But there's other things that I can do. Extra hydration will help with some of that charring. So drinking a little bit of extra water, not necessarily during the meal, but before or after. There's all kinds of things that you can do. Today in the world, we hear of biohacking, and it's not my favorite term. I like more functional medicine, because we're trying to provide function to the body. A biohack is trying to outsmart something. And I don't know that we're outsmarting things. We just want to take great data and know if this is going to be good or bad to us. I live in this premise, and I'm not sure if you and I have ever actually talked about this, but there was a doctor, Jeff Spencer, that taught this to me early on when I was first getting into this field, is that every day we wake up and our fuel tank is either full, it's halfway, or it's really low. And everything goes into that. How well we sleep, what we're eating, what we drink, our environment outside, the fluorescent lights. I mean, everything that goes into it, all of our emotions, the interactions that we have with people, how many people we're surrounded with, all of life, right? And every day you start somewhere in that tank. Well, I want to start every day that I'm as full as possible. And to do that, there's a ledger. And I'm either doing one of two things with every action. I'm either improving my health or I'm declining my health. So today I'm having water. Okay, it's a great step. Is it filtered? Yeah, we've removed all the fluoride and all the other things that aren't good there. So yes, I've got the best possible water that I can drink. Now, if I was drinking it out of a plastic bottle, still getting good hydration, but maybe it's not as good because now I've got some other chemicals in there. And so where does that go into the fuel tank? So I always think of this, just, hey, I'm either adding to the positive or I'm detracting. And so in everything that I do, I think that way. Sometimes it bugs my family that I feel that way. But that's just kind of how I see it. So that's kind of how I'll always present things is, hey, I might have something that might be a detractor. Last week I went to a San Diego Padre game. Have a cocktail, yeah, it's going to reduce immune function and certain other things. But again, it's that moment. You're enjoying yourself. That's part of life. That's what we do.
Oh, we lost Chris. Hey, you back?
Yo, I'm back.
All right. Lost you right when you were talking about the Padres game. I think having a
Yeah, so
cocktail.
we're talking about like genetics and the most sophisticated healthcare in the world. And I live in San Diego, which is fairly populated, and I still can't get good service. So I dropped you guys there. But yeah, I was talking about going to the Padre game or anywhere, and if you do something, you have a drink or a beer or a cocktail, and yes, that can be challenging to your immune system. But the reality is, that's okay. It's not most of the time. It's just occasionally, and we recover from that. That's why our body's so cool. Our liver will process those things and detoxify. And so it doesn't always need to be super extreme that way. I know there's guys out there in the industry, Brian Johnson, some other guys that are just over the top about it. And great, hey, kudos to them. But the reality is, we're two dudes just living life, and with kids and the normal life stresses that we go through, and we just kind of want to bring you this information. We think it's amazing, and anyways.
Yeah, I think future ones we'll dive into our stories because we've each had our fair share of health issues, especially in the last 5 years and so. And
Yeah,
but I noticed this when I was going through mine. Just you talked about waking up and how you're feeling when you're waking up, and if you knew me when I was in college and probably 15 years ago, 20 years ago, the most important, the three things I loved the most was rugby, the Green Bay Packers, and coffee. Coffee was like I couldn't function if I didn't, and that was because my grandma was giving me coffee since I was probably 3 years old. Like the 50-50 milk and coffee, and I just kind of grew up on coffee. So, and I had to cut it. I haven't had coffee. I haven't had like full coffee in a couple of years now, just because I realized when I did a detox that I woke up every morning. Once I got through this, I woke up every morning and I felt that my tank was 100%. And the second I put coffee back in, I would wake up feeling like I'm at 75 or 50 even.
yeah.
So I mean, now granted, some of that I had newborns, but I remember this in school too, waking up and just dragging ass to get out of bed,
Yeah.
and I don't have to do that anymore, and it's 100% just cutting caffeine out of my life. So just little things like that. And I didn't have anything in my genetic report that told me that. It was just a matter of experimenting with it.
Yeah.
I still will make coffee just to kind of sniff it because I love coffee so much.
Yeah. It tastes amazing, and it smells great. And it'll be tough for me to give that up.
Yeah, a lot of people say that. They're like, "You're crazy," but I just can't. It's amazing how much it changes your life when you wake up and you're feeling less than 100%. It's like I got kids and businesses and people counting on me. I can't be at that. So just an example of what I saw in my life. Alcohol does it to me less than coffee does, but
Wow.
I would gladly trade any of that to keep coffee in my life.
I think that's the flip for me is that alcohol. Look, I enjoy a drink here and there, but the way I feel, and even the way I felt back in my 20s and 30s and 40s, it wasn't great, but I would just deal with it. And so I finally have just given it up. So now I haven't,
Good for you.
been really drinking. I'll occasionally will have a little bit of like wine with the dinner or something like that, but it's like we're talking 2 to 3 ounces, like a sip,
Yeah.
or one possible drink somewhere for out somewhere. I don't know, but it's very very infrequent. And yeah, but the reason this show I think is going to be fun is our approach. Dave, you and I've talked about this. People need to know this information from real people, not being told or sold or whatever. Like we just want to give you our story and our experience. Follow along if you want. I think there's a lot to this genetic stuff, and it's the most cutting edge stuff out there, and we feel really really good about it. So
I was looking at a couple of these quotes. I wanted to get your opinion on here from I think it's the health secretary. Yeah, Wes Streeting from England. He said genomics presents us with an opportunity to leapfrog disease, so we're in front of it rather than reacting to it. And so we talked about being able to decipher the reports. And one of the things that I think this is why it's, been important for doctors to be able to do genetic testing and be able to present it to their patients, but then be able to put it into their protocols so that they can prevent disease as well as treat, not just prescriptions, but be able to look at, okay, what's the genetic breakdown? And I know they've been doing this, and there's genetic testing to figure out which medications work best for you and some of that. So going through the doctor to me just still seems like a great route, because also they can help you break the thing down and explain to you what's happening.
Yeah, they should be able to. It
That's
can
true.
even be challenging there, but
Yeah.
but I think kind of what we opened with was, if it's in the right hands with the right intention of true prevention, it's amazing stuff. Whether it be your physician or a naturopathic doctor, whomever it is that you're working with, that's interpreting your test and giving you that guidance. Or if it's just yourself and you're, playing Dr. Google and want to look things up and do your own research, you can do that as well. I really believe that we have to take health into our own hands. If we are truly just living by what, the Western medical world tells us, or what, these guys hawking everything online tells us, we're in the wrong place. Everybody's different. Even though we're, 99% the same, there's that 1% that's different. And that little variation is what makes us, do certain things. It makes me get gray hair, or, whatever it might be. But that's part of the uniqueness and what's kind of cool and fun about it. So as far as, again, what he said there, being in front of it, to me, I see that as prevention and, preventative medicine. Could be preventative nutrition. It could be preventative lifestyle, whatever terms you want to use. The idea is to have knowledge and then act on that knowledge. And we're going to make that as simple as possible for you, so that you can have, great guided, information about your life, like the cold plunge. My wife, she says, I'm not getting in a cold plunge. I hate it, and genetically it says it creates more inflammation for her. And I know we're going to cover that on an episode at some point, but so she kind of won that one. For me, it says it's good for me. So I've got to struggle with, 49-degree water, but I can't say I feel good with it yet.
It takes some time.
It takes some time for sure.
Do you think this is going to be freaking people out? Like, I know there's a lot of people. I remember when my wife and I, when we were talking about doing the genetic test a couple of years ago, and she was like, wait, she wanted to know exactly what it tells us, because she was scared. Like, she has dementia in her family. And she was like, well, if it tells me I'm going to get dementia, like, I don't know if I want to know that. Do you think that that's going to be something they're going to come across and with these tests in England? Like, now you're getting it as a baby.
Yeah, it's definitely a fear. We hear about it in the different businesses that I'm in, is that people are just like, I don't know if I want to know that. This is how I address it. Is I've said this phrase a couple times: your DNA is not your destiny. Knowing something, and I have a very good friend of mine that works with us, that the APOE SNP, there's different variations of it. E4 means that your preponderance to at some point have Alzheimer's is really high. It's like 87%. And study, I think it was out of either Johns Hopkins or Harvard last year, conducted this. And if something's at 87% likelihood, that would freak the hell out of me. Mm-hmm. So if I knew that, do I just want to ignore it? And then when I turn 60, this stuff starts to happen. If I know when I'm 20 and I can do a couple of little things throughout my life, just randomly, hey, I see something on a menu, so I'm going to eat more of that. Or, I don't like cold plunges, but at the end of my shower, I'm going to turn it to cold for 20 seconds. And that little bit can help maybe get me a few more years. Maybe over the time, it extends it out to 90 or 100 before those things happen. So as of with all of these tests, is your DNA is not your destiny. There are things that we can do. There's interventions, both medically as well as preventatively in a food state, the way we live our life, exercise, etc. We want to keep inflammation down. And inflammation, whether it be neuro, when we start talking about Alzheimer's or dementia, or elsewhere in the body, is really, really important.
Where do you see, so now this is like the first big mainstream step, I feel like, for genetics and genomics. Where do you see this going? Like, what do you see 10 years from now? Do you see this happening? Like, our insurance company is going to be doing genetic testing at the, to get you on, or where do you see this going? Obviously, we have completely different health systems in the United States versus England, right? It's the private versus the public. We have some control on data, and we should probably do an episode talking too, because there's a whole thing going around the what is it, 23andMe. 23andMe and their data stuff and what's happening with all that. But yeah, where do you see kind of genetics and genomics going here over the next 10 years?
Yeah, so I think a few things. Number one, I think that you will see the first kind of pushback from those that are just afraid about privacy. Taking my data and developing a custom smart drug that I'm told I have to take to be able to get access to do X. So that's one theory out there that could happen. In the wrong hands, that anything's possible. Privacy is so important, and within our company, our genetic testing business, privacy is, and we'll do a whole show on this because I'll walk you guys through all the different firewalls, the protections that you get. It's, your data is your data. It is not sold. It is not rented. Unlike a lot of the other ones that are, really inexpensive that you can get for $99 or $129, the likelihood is that they're selling that data. That's how they make their money in the back end. And 23andMe, I don't mind saying it, they have all kinds of issues. I think they've just been sold, I believe, to a pharmaceutical company. That would concern me too. But who knows what's going to happen with all of that data that's in-house to them. So I think first is going to be just that on the data side. Where do I see it in 10 years? I literally, one of my targets or goals is that every American has their genetic test. I feel so strongly that a comprehensive genetic test will extend life just by a few basic things. Everybody's going to have a prime nutrient that they need out of this. For me, it's choline, which is part of eggs, and so I make sure that I eat a little bit more eggs. It's just a little bit here and there. If I would have known this when I was 20, I think things could be different as far as some of the health issues that I've ran into here in the last year and a half or 2 years. And I know we're going to do a show on that as well, kind of our personal stories. So finding that basic nutrient or thing that you can do on a regular basis is so important. So I would love to see in 10 years, everyone is tested at their own accord. I don't think it should be mandated. I don't think that, we need government regulation around this. Take it into your own hands, get a test done. And it's got so much information. I mean, there's even people out there that are like finding their mates, their spouse through this. And I know we laughed about that, Dave, but it's becoming really popular. People are doing these genetic matchups to find a spouse.
Yeah. And then I think they went to a Coldplay concert and got busted or something.
Someone that's going to listen to this in a couple of years and be like, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
That was actually pretty funny.
Yeah, we'll try to slide in some what's relevant now. I guess probably won't make sense when somebody watches this in the future. Okay. Anything else?
Maybe they should have done a genetic test.
They should.
How well they're going to handle public embarrassment.
So what do you think? Anything else on this England test that you want to talk about? For me, it was like this is kind of the watershed moment, or whatever you want to say. It's breaking it open mainstream, where an entire country is going to be doing this within the next few years. Yeah, I think they're starting it all the way, but by the end of, they said within 10 years, it's going to be every child born is going to be having this. So it's time. I think everybody jumps on and starts finding it out, probably before we're being forced to do it, maybe.
Yeah, that's my only thing is I don't think that a government needs to get involved in this. It's something where one of the primary tenets was to make this affordable so that everyone can do it, and we think we're at that point, especially for a test that you only have to do once, that gives you literally a lifetime of information and data. Um, I think we just keep this individual and let families purchase plans and get their information and that sort of stuff is the way to go. I just This is me personally. I think it also limits. Then can there be something? We're joking about what's going on in the world right now. Coldplay concerts. It's the same thing within governments. Who knows what's going on? There's so much information that it's hard to really understand what's real and what's not. So what's cool about genetic testing is that it is very real. It has been, researched and back and forth, and now we're just at a place where it's becoming more accessible. The quality of the test is really important to have super high quality test, and at the same time to have it be your data, it's your privacy. So getting you that kind of information. But you can learn amazing stuff about yourself, and it's pretty cool. I could pull it up into a page right now and then say, I'm going to do this because of that, and extend your life and extend the quality of your life, I think.
Absolutely. All right. Well, cool. Well, hey, I think we made it to the first episode. If you've made it this far, thanks for sticking around. Please subscribe, follow us. We've got some cool stuff lined up. One of the big goals for me is I find so much information online that I have no idea if it's crap or not. And so I'd love to be able to bring on people that we can interview that are experts in their field to learn more and ask them questions so that we can get to the bottom of this. But we've got some cool shows lined up too, just me and you talking about the tests, what people can learn from that. We talked about cold plunging, genetics and love, genetics and heart disease, what that means, what kind of supplements and nutrition you can do to help, if you have certain things. So we've got some fun stuff lined up. Any final thoughts or comments before we wrap up?
Just there's one other topic that I don't think we've talked about, but I've just started looking at. It's really pretty cool. Is as having a 2.5-year-old, having an idea of how they're going to respond to certain stimulus. You can learn that in the genetics. Basically, hey, what type of tantrum or outburst are they going to have? Is it going to be more physical, more verbal? And it's amazing what you can learn. And then it can help you be a better parent by knowing yourself around the COMT gene and your kid. And so it's really pretty fascinating. It's a whole new area. So we'll have to add that to our list, Dave, as to something we talk about.
I'm in, although our kids don't get too many tantrums, and I always thought it was really good parenting. So maybe it's genetics. I don't know if I want to know that.
Just keep patting yourself on the back, Dave.
All right. Appreciate you guys. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you next week.